All right. Yeah, nice to meet you, Antonia. Nice to meet you, Harriet. Okay, so quick one. This event is and community events and projects is one of the services that we offer and manage. So I would all right, so you're welcome to Bincom Dev Center. We are a multi-location technology, talent development and solutions platform. We have our locations that is virtually near you. We have our location in Yaba, Lagos State, Oyo State, Kano State, Kaduna, Ogun State, Delta State, United Kingdom, and we have plans to expand to as many locations as possible. In Beacon Dev Center, our aim is to one, build tech talents, enhance tech talents, and build startups. And under building tech talent, we have different services that are geared towards giving value to people. We have Bincom Academy, we have Bincom Tech Internship, we have Bincom Tech Apprenticeship, and we have the Global Tech Program. In order to enhance tech talent, we have our Bincom Tech Network, including community events and projects. We have Lightspace, Emigrate Tech Visa, Bincom Mentoring Platform, and Bincom Tech Career Coaching. And then we have our Labs by Bincom for building of startups. Our Bincom Academy utilizes a Montessori approach in training participants in basic skills that is needed for the modern technology ecosystem. Our internship is designed to enable people at intermediate skill levels gain mastery and expertise over a period of time. Our apprenticeship is more of an industrial attachment at various skill levels for you to gain experience and on-the-job training. Our tech network, which includes community events and projects, is geared towards giving back to the community and building the tech ecosystem. Our focus is on informing and exposing the youth to the current technology trends and how you and I can prepare for the future in technology. We also have our light space, which are helpful workspaces that are intended to encourage collaboration, drive innovation in the startup ecosystem. And we have spaces that is created and designed for various events like seminars, conferences, and get together. We can find this light space in our location as seen in this slide. We also have our Global Tech Program. It is your solution to launch your tech career globally. It is a 1 to 2 years program that is focused on three key pillars: learn skills, gain experience, gain exposure. We have our Emigrate Tech Visa. Emigrate Tech Visa helps you become a globally attractive helps you become globally attractive, building a tech profile and also building a tech-enabled business. It is also your tech-enabled pathway to relocation and settlement in countries like United Kingdom, United States of America, Canada, France, and many more. We also have our mentoring platform. It is more of a structured mentoring solution to help mentors add values to mentees for the purpose of building globally attractive techies. Our Labs by Bincom is a 3 to 6 month pre-incubator program that brings together participants in to build a digital technology product that would be used by real life users. And of course, we have our tech career coaching. It helps individuals to land their next role faster by offering them a combination of coaching, relevant on the job experience, career referencing, introduction to tech recruiters, hand holding through application and interview process, and much more. So please do well to indicate interest in any of our service, and if you want to get more information about these services, please do well to reach out. We'll be dropping links in the chat, so please say watch the chat. We'll be dropping valuable links. All right, so you're once again welcome to PHP Meetup July edition, and we have our topic is really it's quite an interesting one. So at this juncture, I will hand over to Oladimeji, who will talk about the topic and then invite our first speaker for this session. Oladimeji, floor is yours.
All right, thank you. But actually, Antonia is doing that, so let's welcome Antonia. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so moving forward, our topic for today's PHP meetup is frameworks and tools, that is leveraging the ecosystem. So today we'll be talking about exploring the power of Laravel, Symfony, and other PHP frameworks, and also integrating modern PHP tools like Composer, PHP Unit, and PHP Stand, and the likes. So the purpose of this PHP meetup is a community development initiative that seeks to inform young at heart of the various opportunities and steps that abound in the field of programming, especially in Nigerian environments. Moving forward, I would like to introduce our first speaker, the person of Mr. Bright I. Alero. He is a seasoned programmer and a tech entrepreneur with over 6 years experience in innovative solutions. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in computer from Ignatius Adjuro University of Education, Port Harcourt, and he hails from the Iba community local government area of Rivers State and is currently based in Port Harcourt. He has mastered a diverse tech stack such as PHP, React.js, Next.js, Laravel, CodeIgniter, Symfony, and so on and so forth. So I would like to hand over to our first speaker, Mr. Bright Ayalero. Can we have you, sir?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon,
I
sir. You're
think
welcome.
for this first part,
Sure.
I think I will have to turn on my camera and turn it off after now. Okay, so um, I'm Bright Aleru. As you all know, I'm happy to be in this meetup. It's a nice opportunity to be with you. So far, we are looking at leveraging the ecosystem, exploring PHP frameworks and tools. Okay, so the focus on some of the most widely is the focusing. We are focusing on some of the most widely used frameworks and tools. So in this meetup, we are going to take only 3 frameworks, which 2 has already been mentioned. We'll have Laravel Symfony, and then we'll be looking at CodeIgniter, as these are the 3 most widely used frameworks. Although we have other frameworks, but we'll be majoring on these 3. We'll also be looking at some modern PHP tools like Composer, PHP Unit, and PHP Stand. And finally, we will do some examination on how to work within these frameworks while adhering to programming principles such as solid principles and some design patterns. Thank you. As we progress in the meetup, we will share more details. Okay, so I don't know, I can proceed now, right, to the main business of the day. Hello? Are we proceeding immediately?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
We can,
sir.
sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. So we want to look at something. We're looking at frameworks and tools. First of us, we have to look at framework. What is a framework? How does it differ from our libraries? So we are going to look at that. How does it differ from our libraries? Okay, so we will come to understand that library on its own, as we already know, are collection of pre-written codes that can be used by the programmer to perform common tasks. The programmer is in control and calls the library. But when it comes to the framework provides us a skeleton structure with defined flows and behavior. The structure is in control and the programmer plugs in their own code to specific point dictated by the framework. Okay, so what are we trying to say? In the aspects of the library, these are written codes already. They are there for you. You just have to plug in. You make use of them. But when we come to the framework, they are not just written codes. They are like the skeleton of your project. And at the end of the day, there are specific points where you are provided to write your own code. And so at times, if you make some changes in certain areas of the framework, you'll find out that you might get some misbehavior. That's an unexpected behavior from your application, which is quite different from a library. For instance, we might say, okay, can we have an example of a library? Okay, we can say, for instance, Paystack. They deliver their system in form of library. You can just install and use. We'll just give an instance of a library. You could have a library for chat, for instance, maybe Laravel Chatify, where you can have a similitude of what happens on WhatsApp. It's a library. Let's not forget that some of this library exists as packages that you can be installed, that are installable in your projects. I believe I'm talking to PHP developers and experience, and also some are mid-level, some are not experienced. So we will try to see how we will keep it as short as possible. All right, having discussed what framework is and how it differs from a library, we want to now go further to look at another thing about a framework. We need to note that frameworks often use callbacks and hooks where the developer can insert custom behavior. The framework invokes this callback at appropriate time. Frameworks also, they have predefined structure. Typically impose a specific structure on architecture on the code base or architecture on the code base. This can include patterns like model view controller, MVC, in web frameworks, which guide developer on how to organize their code. Okay, so looking at this, we are trying to say that frameworks have predefined structure. And for the frameworks we are looking at, most of them have this pattern of MVC, model view controller. So where your model represents a database table, and your view, your normal HTML, CSS, and your controller for routing your request and response in and out of your application. So this helps to organize your code. So you now know that when you want to write your HTML code, you are supposed to go to your view. If you want to write your business logic, you are supposed to go to this particular area. If you want to write and connect your database, you're supposed to deal with this part of the area. So in another way to is also extensibility. Frameworks provide extension points where developers can extend or customize functionality. These extension points are well defined and allow the framework to maintain control while still being flexible. I want us to take an instance. And the instance I want us to take is in the instance of customizing. if we go to Laravel, for instance, and you want to customize your authentication, it is provided that you go to your auth.php file to create or define your guard, for instance. Now, the default guard is the web guard, but you can customize and put up your own. The default authentication model that extends your authenticable class is your user model. But what if I have facilitator model where the facilitator will be logging in, I have the admin model and all of that? You know, you can configure all of these things in your auth.php file, where you now define your model, you define the provider of the model. So that is just an instance of the extensibility, the flexibility of the framework. So it doesn't stop there. What about your emailing system? You have your facade mail. You can also generate your custom mailer and then configure it how you want it to look like. Okay, so moving further, we will still look at some other things that makes this framework the way they are. Convention over configuration. We have many frameworks adopt the principle of convention over configuration, meaning they come with sensible defaults. They come with sensible defaults that reduce the need for extensive configuration, making development faster and more intuitive. I would want to iterate here that in frameworks are made to make your job easier for you to be able to do less of configuration. You just plug in and you move. Imagine you are setting up a system that will have to send a mail, you have to do your authentication, you have to do a lot of things, handle your carts management and all of that, maybe an e-commerce system. You find that building all these things from scratch or installing all of these packages from scratch is a whole lot of work. But using framework, some of these things are already pre-configured for you. You just have to call them and they will answer you. So that's the essence of that, of what we are saying, that convention over configuration. So you already have a conventional way of how things work, and that is placed over configuration. Okay, now example, we have to look at the popular frameworks. We have our example, we have our Laravel, we have our Symfony, and we have our Code Igniter. And that is an example of a design pattern they follow, and that is inversion of control. Inversion of control. That's what most of the framework follow. They follow inversion of control. All right, so let's move further to discuss each of these framework, their main features, and then specifically their ORMs and other things that might be found in them. So we want to look at Laravel at first. We want to look at Laravel. So we'll be looking at the main feature of Laravel, and then we'll look at the object relational mapper of Laravel, the ORM. So the major feature of Laravel is that Laravel has elegant syntax. Okay, so it's not a news. I believe you know this, but we just want to iterate and bring out one or two points from here. Laravel is known for its clean, elegant syntax that make it enjoyable to work with. Of course, if you are a Laravel developer, you will understand what we are trying to say. Then we look at the routing. Let me say this. One of the things that makes a framework is routing, the routing system. Aside the routing system, some of what we call framework would have not been called a framework. The truth part of it, I know I used Code Igniter a lot. I've written a lot of code in Code Igniter to the point that I can write some thousands of lines of code without even consulting documentation. Now, with my experience over the years using Code Igniter, I came to discover that outside the routing system of Code Igniter isn't fit enough to be called a framework. Isn't fit enough to be called a framework. It is the routing system that makes it qualify to be a framework. Let's not leave the fact of the footprint it has, but then you should look at the full-fledged framework, what is supposed to be provided and all of that. You will come to understand with me that the routing system is very important when we come to frameworks. So the routing system for Laravel offers a simple and expressive method to define routes. Of course, in Laravel, you have different ways to define your routes. You have your web.php, where you define your normal routes for your monolith. You have your API.php, where you define your API-based routes. You even have your auth.php, where you define your authentication routes. I think that one is provided for you once you install any of the package, the authentication packages, maybe like Laravel Breeze and all the rest of it. So you see the auth.php file generated for you. We even have the console. We have the console is there and some other ones that are there, okay, for your event handling. So we have quite a huge number of them. I think about majorly as it concerns us. As it concerns us, we majorly have your API, your console, your auth, and your web. Okay, so that's the four of them. We also have our middlewares. What are middlewares? They are part of Laravel features. Middlewares. So your middlewares allows filtering HTTP requests, your hypertext transfer protocol request, entering the application. So some of these requests are intercepted in your middlewares. So your middleware sometimes handle them, process them, and then allow them access to the main application. And then we have your Blade templating engine, where you define your file and you have maybe your HTML files, you will be extended with maybe index.blade.php. And then you can now have your at convention to write your Blade files and all of that. So, which is also lightweight and powerful templating engine. We have our artisan CLI command, the command line interface for tasks like database migration and seeding, creating your controller. I think in the latest version of Laravel, we even have, you can now create an interface, you can now create a class, and you can even create a trait. You can create a trait as that. So, and the issue of traits, I don't want to move much into that. Of course, we know that trait is what helps PHP mitigate the issue of multiple inheritance. So you can now create a trait with your artisan command in the latest Laravel 11. Okay, so we also have a built-in authentication and authorization. Of course, we have mentioned that before now. Or your authentication, you can install your Breeze and your Livewire and all of that. You can install them for your authentications and it works for you out of the box. Okay, so we want to look at the ORM of Laravel. Laravel uses Eloquent. It uses Eloquent. Okay, so in Laravel, we have your active record implementation. Each model represents a table in the database. I believe we know this for the experienced ones, and for those that are not much experienced in Laravel, then you should know that in your Eloquent, your active record implementation indicates that each model represents a table in the database. And how does that work? Your model is your singular, while your table is the plural. For instance, if I am creating a model user, so my corresponding table is supposed to be what? Users. If I have a camel case of maybe, say, fast user model or user facilitator, for instance. Now, and it's camel case, so my table is going to be user underscore facilitator, right? So that's how it takes. Then we have our relationship too. Eloquent supports various relationships like one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. Okay, so in that case, where you usually do your has one belongs to return to, and belongs to, has many, and belongs to many, and all of that. So we have a lot of that. We also have our mutators and accessors. So this transform attribute value when retrieving or setting them. So these are the things you can find in Laravel ORM. So moving quickly, we want to go into Symfony and look at the features of Symfony. The features of Symfony will have flexibility. Symfony is highly flexible and configurable. So when you create your Symfony project, you basically see your app folder and other folders. So unlike this other place where you see your models and all that, so unlike Laravel, so you see your folders the way they are. So those folders, you can actually configure them, and you have your bundles, your modular components that can be reused and shared across projects. That's your bundle. Then Symfony also has its own templating engine, your weak templating engine, secure and efficient templating engine in that matter. So it also has a CLI, just as you have your artisan command line. So it has its own powerful CLI for code generation and other tasks. Security component also has a comprehensive security features, including authentication, authorization, and CSRF token, that's cross-site request forgery protection. Whilst it also has event dispatcher, which implements the observer pattern for decoupling components. So these are major parts of Symfony. You can see some interesting part, your event dispatcher, which is talking about the observer pattern, design pattern for decoupling component. For instance, say I want to develop a system that users sign up on the platform, and each time a sign up is made, I want something to happen. Now, for that thing to happen, normally we can look at it and say, okay, once they sign up, I want an email to be sent. I also want a report to be generated. We can just say, okay, why not, if he signs up, then we'll just call a method or a function and then let it do that thing. Let it make the person generate the report, possibly go ahead and send message and all of that. It's okay, but this has an impact on the system. It has an impact on the system. By the time you are having 2,000 persons signing up at the same time, and you are calling the same component, come and do this, come and do this, that's requests ongoing. So how do we mitigate that? The concept of observers are there. So what does observer do? Observers, they look out for events. You have specific events you have set on trap that once this event happens, please do this for me. So your observers will naturally carry out some actions for you without involving the system, system process itself. So it's on its own. It's just observing the network. Once something happens, your observer intercepts it, collects what has happened, and does what it's supposed to do. And some of these things works like a job. Works like a job. How does a job work? It runs on its own without restricting the response. But if we say, okay, let's use a function to do all of that, you'll find out that before you will receive your request that your decision is successful, all of these things will have to be done before you will get back a request. At least the mail will be sent, the report will be generated, and all that before you will get back a response. Imagine how many minutes you will wait for all of these things to happen. But with Observer, it just takes observe that something a decision has occurred, and then it picks it up from there and does what it's supposed to do without your involvement. And you have already gotten your feedback that your decision was successful and all of that, while your observer is working on the background, trying to complete the remaining tasks for you. So these are the most important part of the event dispatcher in Symfony. And I want to say at this point that some of these things in Laravel, we are trying to bring some of these things into play most of these things are borrowed from Symfony. Even the design pattern, the repository design pattern is that we now use in Laravel. I don't know how many of you that use it in Laravel. You find out that this thing is a core feature of Doctrine, and it's like the custom and the traditional feature of it. That's how it was naturally. So, but we are trying to leverage on that when we come to Laravel by now, okay, let's have a repository pattern where you have your repository interface, your repository class, and possibly a service class where you handle your business logic, and then your controller is just there to receive a request and then return a response. So all of these things majorly are being leveraged from Symfony. And then you see Laravel borrowing some of these things and doing some of it. Now let's look at the ORM of the Symfony. Symfony uses Doctrine as its ORM. So we have data mapper implementation, separate the in-memory object from database schema. So that's one thing it does. And then entity repositories, just as I've mentioned, custom repository for complex queries. You'll find out that in this place, you have your repository. So you do not have access to your model direct. No, you have your repository classes where you now write, and each of the repository classes defines a method in the repository classes defines a particular action that is supposed to be happening with your model. For instance, your insertion, your deletion, your updation, and all of that. So when some of these things, you see some of these things, they have their corresponding part in the model, what it's doing, but you do not have a direct access to it. These are just an abstracted class, and then this thing you will now access them via your interface. So we have the lifecycle callback hooks into the lifecycle of entity operation is also there. We also have the caching, which is another very important one. Built-in support for various caching mechanisms to optimize performance. So in this caching, let me just say one or two things here. You'll find out that, for instance, if I request for a particular data almost all the time, so the caching mechanism of Doctrine is very much capable to intercept this and catch this thing. So each time I request for that particular thing, instead of querying the database afresh, it gives me what I have requested before and provides for me. Then at a point, if there are new things or I do kind of like a hard refresh, or it notice that this request is coming, but there is a change in it. So it goes back and fetch new data and update for me. So all the time, when I request for a data, the data isn't like fetch afresh from the database. So that's what the caching system does for you. For instance, we have a page where we are displaying about 1,000 courses. So imagine that when the page loads, 1,000 courses are pulled from the database to the front end at every refresh. Imagine how much impact that will be on your server. And then at a point, if you begin to have like, say, like 1,000 persons accessing your platform at a time, you'll find out that when this 1,000 persons does a refresh the same time, you know the impact. If time is not taken, and if you don't know the level and the capacity of the infrastructure you are using online, you could hit DDoS, that's denial of service. So what do the caching mechanism does? It have to see, okay, this person for this time period has always requested for this kind of data. So each time you make this request, it fetches and gives you what you have requested before and then gives to you. And then over time, it can make an update to what you have without your request hitting the database direct to fetch this data after. So this is just a little part of what the caching mechanism does for you. Now, the last we'll have to look at this series or episode is your code igniter. It's a framework I like so much, even though it has one or two drawbacks, but I like the framework so much. So number one, it's lightweight. Wow, it's lightweight. So of course, you know, it's lightweight, minimal footprint, making it suitable for small to medium-sized application. Okay, so I want to say here that these frameworks, they have what they are good at. They have what they are good at. You want to do a small project to medium-sized project, then your code igniter is okay. It's okay. Of course, code igniter, I think we have version 4 now that works like Laravel. For those of us that are Laravel enthusiasts, so we have CodeIgniter 4. It's just like Laravel. They have their Spark artisan command too. The way you use artisan, they use Spark. So you can check it out. It's interesting. Okay, it's MVC. You follow the model view controller pattern. Of course, this is one of the PHP frameworks that follow exactly your MVC, your model view controller. You are seeing it there, well defined. Okay, it's easy to set up and learn with minimal configuration. That's true. Error handling, simple and user-friendly error handling. I think in this particular framework, one of the most liberal so far I have used is CodeIgniter. In CodeIgniter, you can write your raw PHP code there and it works. You can write your raw PHP query, your raw SQL query. It will work without complaining much. You can write your PHP tag on your page and do all your PHP and whatever you want to do. It works very well out of the box. Form and data validation, of course, it provides us tools for validating form data, security, built-in feature to protect against CSF token and XSS attack. Of course, the XSS attack, there are version of it that is deprecated, but is there for you. Then we'll have the ORM, the CodeIgniter model. That's what it uses. So if you're creating a model, it has to go with underscore model.php. I can say user underscore model.php. Okay, so that's how you do that. And then we have our active record, who simplifies SQL queries by using a set of methods. Okay, query builder offers a full interface to build SQL queries. Okay, basic function, lightweight, basic functionality compared to Eloquent and Dotrim, but suitable for simpler needs. Of course, we have said that. Then automatic validation supports automatic validation of model data. So these are just a few aspects of the frameworks we are to look at. Now, in summary of the frameworks, I want us to know that in all of this, the chief main framework so far that has proven itself over the years to stand out is your Symfony. So your Symfony is the manager, the oga patapata in charge. So you find out that when you are creating your Laravel project using your composer, a lot of dependencies are installed. Most of the dependencies are from Symfony. In fact, your Illuminate Foundation dependencies are Symfony dependencies. So they leverage a lot of things. The mailer you use in Laravel is Symfony mailer. That's what is used in Laravel. Your artisan command CLI is derived from Symfony too, and other features. So Symfony stands out on its own, but it's very big for certain projects. So you just have to stick with Laravel. But then if you are good enough, then you can also try out Symfony. Your CodeIgniter for your small project, your Laravel can handle any part of any kind of project, small, big, or medium, or large scale, or enterprise. It can handle it. Most of these frameworks, I want to say, how good a framework is dependent on the user of the framework. The frameworks are just there. The framework is working, it's very good, it's very nice. I think it is a function of the developer that is using the framework. So if you use it well, it will work well for you. If you don't use it well, you will move into some pitfalls and downfalls here and there. So just take note of that. All right, let's look at some tools before we take the concluding part. Let's look at some tools, some modern tools. Your composer. So your composer basically is for dependency management. Okay, projects manages project dependencies, allowing you to declare libraries your project depends on. Like I mentioned before, your composer is for your dependency management, your project dependency management. These dependencies, we are talking about libraries. There are some libraries you need to install in your project. For instance, yeah, like your paystack library is there, your Gozo clients for your API request is there, and all of these things. So you do all of that using your composer. Okay, so your composer also helps you in auto loading. In auto loading, what does auto load do? Auto load loads your asset or your classes, and they become globally accessible in your script. So that's what one of the things computer do. So automatically generates autoloader for your project, making it easy to include classes. So I can decide to go to my composer.json file and then put a particular class, maybe a helper class, and that helper class will be globally accessible in my project, be it in my Blade template, in my view, in my controller, in my service class, in my model, anywhere it will become accessible. Your packages integration works seamlessly with packages, the default package for repository for what? PHP. All right, what are the benefits? Simplifies dependency management, automatically handles library versions and dependency. Okay, so that part, you find out that some libraries, there are versions of some libraries. Imagine that you have installed paystack library to work with, and all of a sudden paystack releases a new library and you need to update to the new library. Imagine you going to your vendor file folder and then deleting looking for where this other library is, the former library is, delete it and then go and download this and the new one online and come there and paste it and then try to do some configuration before the system will recognize it and all of that. It's a lot of work. But with Composer, you just have to run your Composer updates, provided that the versioning, you have your kind of like a caret before the version number. So that means that you can update to any version greater than or equal to that version. So you can update. Just run your composer update and it will fetch the latest file and replace with the initial one you had in your project folder. What's a nice thing to have. So encourage code reusability, allows easy integration of third-party libraries. I've mentioned that, which will use Paystack as an instance. Consistent environment ensures all developers use the same library version, reducing work of my machine issues. Okay, so that I've also mentioned the issue of versioning. So when you have ensure that developers across board use the same version, so we have a less work to do. So if the latest version is, for instance, for Paystack is version 5, for instance, you find out that all developers using the latest version should be using version 5. For your Laravel, if the latest version is version 11, which of course is the latest version, the other version, maybe version 12, is still in development. Okay, so if that's the latest version, it means that every other person that is using that version should be on the same version. Now, these versions, they have their numbers. Maybe you can have version 1 point this, point this. So some of them talks about some major changes, some fixes. Some could be security fees, some could be major updates, some could be minor fees and all of that. So that's what you will have there across board, across all the whole programmers might have in the globe, depending on what you are using. Okay, so we have our PHP unit for unit testing. Wow. So the unit testing aspect of this, we are looking at, you have done building a platform, come to think of it, and your platform is working very well. Imagine the happiness. We've been on this project for like, say, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the line. And then all of a sudden, we say we are done. And then we'll go to production server and our code is telling us there is an error. There are things we are supposed to use and we could not use it the way they are. Sometimes Maybe this method requires a type of integer, and we are passing a type of float. This method requires a type of string, and we are passing a type of array, and all of that. And then we are only coming to find out that when we have gone to production. Imagine how painful that could be. This will have impact on the project. What are the impacts? Number one, you have made an awareness that we are launching so date. Your user are very much enthusiastic. They want to go and explore what you have done so far. Now you're telling them that we are shifting because we found a bug. The interest drops. That is expression of disappointment. And sometimes you have paid for an infrastructure, and the infrastructure already started reading. When for those of us that will pay for postpaid, prepaid, it has started reading when you have not put anything, you have not started running, and you have already started incurring debts. Imagine how it looks. So that is where unit testing comes in, and your PHP unit is used for that. So your PHP unit, you run your unit test, make sure that all the test cases are done. Make sure that you say A is A, and A should return a type of string. Your unit test make sure that A actually returns a type of string. That's what it does, and not a type of integer. Okay, so that is on that aspect. So we can also look at test automation, automating testing process, making it easier to run tests frequently. For instance, for those of us that works with CI/CD deployment, continuous deployment and delivery, the integration and delivery, you will come to understand that sometimes we could have that configured in our code versioning system, your Git. I think that's the most popular one around. GitHub, your GitHub and all of that, you collaborate. So we could go to our GitHub, and we'll set our test cases that this method should return this method should return this. So when you are pushing a code to the repository, if the method is not returning a particular type, that code will not deploy successfully to the repository. It will be rejected. So you have to adjust your method for it to meet up the test case in that scenario. I think in time past, I went for an interview, and I was to write some interview on a particular project, I think a publication project or so. And then each of the method has a particular test case it needs to pass before I can submit my interview. So I have to write some test cases. You find out that when I was at first, I tried to push what I have done, but then it didn't go. I said, okay. I found out, okay, let me run this thing locally. I have to run my tests locally. I found out that I was having a lot of errors. So some methods were not returning what they were supposed to return. I have to go back, refactor my code, and then they returned, run again, and then the thing returned, the codes returned what they were supposed to return. Then as I said, okay, let me push. As I just push one hand, it went through. But initially, my code was refuted because it was not adhering to the laid down rules for the code to be accepted. So you can automate your testing. Mocking objects allow you to create mock objects for isolated testing of components. For instance, if you are testing database, you are not supposed to test with your live database. So you are supposed to mock a test to test your database. So that's what you're supposed to do. So that this test, okay, let's say this database is accepting this data, maybe this colon name, email, and all of this. You're supposed to mock your test to mimic what your database is supposed to do and not using your live database for the test. And the last but not the least on this is your PHP stand. Your PHP stand is for your static analysis. It analyzes your code without executing it, identifying potential error and enforcing coding standards. Okay, type safety ensures proper types usage, reducing runtime errors. Custom rules allow defining custom rules to enforce coding standards specific to your project. Now, we should not put these two things together. They are different. One is for testing. This other one is to ensure your types checking. Now, remember, PHP traditionally does not have type checking, unlike language like Java, language like TypeScript, and other languages that ensures you have your type defined. But currently in PHP, we have type. You can define a class and you have add a type. So your PHP stand is a tool that was developed to ensure the issue of type checking. Okay, so your benefit there, why use PHP stand? Early error detection. Of course, when you check your types, you can catch error early in the development process. Enforce best practice, of course, encourages adherence to best practices. Okay, improve code reliability, helps maintain a high standard of code quality over time. All right, so these are our tools we have mentioned: your composer, your PHP stamp, and your PHP unit. All right, let's look at this. Having put all of these tools together, all of this framework together, what are the essence of it? Now we want to tie the knot. Hello. I hope we are together. Hello.
Yes, sir. Well, with you, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. So let's tie the knot and see the essence of all this. You have your framework. You've chosen a nice one, maybe PHP, Laravel, or Symfony. We have your Yield. We have your Zend. Okay, to mention but these ones. Okay, so you have your composer, you have your PHP stand, you have your PHP units, and other tools. Now, what are the essence? If you use these tools and you do not maintain some programming principles, then you will still not leverage much on the ecosystem. Or rather, I will say you are still not leveraging very much on the ecosystem. You are still not leveraging. It means you have your tool, you have your good gun, you have your bullet, but you are shooting and you are missing the target. That's what it simply means. So how do you ensure that you have a good tool, you have a good framework, you have a good knowledge, and then you are really leveraging on the ecosystem, leveraging on the tools? You are really making good use of the tools you have. How do we ensure that this is in place? One of the ways that you ensure that this is in place is by maintaining some programming principles. Although this was not captured in the topic, but that is not how we can talk about leveraging on the ecosystem, making good use of the tools of the ecosystem we have found ourselves, making good use of it, judicious use of it. There's no how we can mention all of that, and there's no how we can make use of that without mentioning, maintaining good programming principles, some programming principles. And in that, I will mention one programming principles we are supposed to maintain, and then just highlight few design patterns. Of course, I've mentioned the observer design pattern. We also have your repository. I've mentioned that before now. We have your singleton. Your singleton is there as a design pattern, which is basically especially is used for your database classes. So to ensure that they have only one access point and not various access points, okay, and other ones. But so how can we use this design pattern and still ensure that we maintain the programming principle? And one of the programming principles we'll be looking at is solid principle. your solid principle. I want to assure you or tell you that if you maintain solid principle, then you are on your path to success, your path to writing a reusable code, a decoupled code, a code that can easily be tested, a code that you will have less problem to maintain, and any developer can just come in and fit in into what you are doing. Your solid principle. Number one, your S stands for your single responsibility principle, SROP. So what does this say? This says that each class should have only one reason to change. Every class should have only one reason to change. What's the problem with this? Imagine managing user authentication, product data, and other processing in a single class would make the class complex and difficult to maintain. Of course, you know that if you want to manage your authentication, you use one class. That same class, you're using it for your product, you are using it to process your order and all of that. It's quite cumbersome. So what's the solution? Each class should have one responsibility. It means that your order should have one responsibility, one class. Your products should have one class. Your authentication should have one class. So by so doing, you are maintaining the first principle of solid, that says single responsibility principles. Okay? We have your open close principle, OCP. So what does this state? This states that classes should be open for extension but closed for modification. Please take this, very important. What is the problem with this? Modifying existing class to add new functionality could introduce bug and affect existing feature. I know we do a lot of that. In my early days, for when I entered programming earlier, in fact, I did a lot of this, but as time goes on, one has to grow. So you find out that you want to add a feature, maybe your notification feature, and then you go to the same class and then you add it there. Maybe your product class, you just add a notification method or whatever. No, that's not how it's supposed to be. So what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to have a class. Classes should be open for extension but closed for modification. Use interface, inheritance, or interfaces to extend functionality without changing the existing code. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to use inheritance. Either extend the existing class or you have an interface where the new class will implement. So if your new class implements the old class interface, then it means that the methods there are available, you have to use. Or you extend them instead of going to modify what has been tested and pushed to production. You are going to modify it again. No, you create a new class and then extend the old class and ensure that you are putting the new feature without interfering with the old class. Okay, we have your list scope substitution principle, which is the task for LSP. Your subtypes should be substitutable for their base types. What is the problem with this? A derived class should be substitutable for its base class without altering the correctness of the program. Solution is that you should ensure that subclasses can replace their base class without altering expected behavior. For instance, we have a class of shape and then a subclass of circle. Circle should be able to replace the class shape without altering the correctness of it. That's what we're trying to say. We have our interface segregation principles. I want to say this for those of us that use repository pattern. Please, is a beg. Stop having a very large class. Clients should not be forced to depend on interfaces they do not use. So the problem is that clients should not be forced to depend on interfaces they do not use. Large interface should be split into smaller ones, more specific ones. What are we trying to say in this regard? For those of us that use a repository pattern, please don't create a very big interface and then every repository class you have, we have to extend the implement the interface even when they do not use it. Some of us will have a base interface, and this base interface, some of the interfaces you are using are not even using them, are not even using some of the methods there. It is not a good practice. Instead, break the interfaces into specific ones. Let the classes implement the interface they need. If a class needs the interface to update and delete and does not need the interface for insertion, please, such class should never implement an interface that has insertion. That is what it's trying to say. Instead, create another interface only for insertion so that the class that needs it will implement it. That is on that point. Then your dependency inversion principle. High-level models should not depend on low-level model. Both should depend on abstraction. What's the problem here? High-level model should not depend on low-level. Both should depend. Changes in low-level model can force changes in high-level model. Solution: use dependency injection to invert the dependency. Use dependency inversion to invert the dependency. So we should have dependency injection. So you can have your abstract class where your classes can implement or extend, and not have a place where you find out that this other class is dependent on this. And when something happens to that class, all the dependence goes haywire and something is wrong with them. So no, you have to do it in a way that everything works in abstraction. So if you maintain this principle, the solid principle, just to mention, but that there are other principles. But if you maintain this, you find out that you, number one, achieve a decoupled code. Two, you will achieve a system that can be maintainable, a system that can accept unit testing. Not all systems can accept unit testing. If you use your normal monolith and you want to do unit tests with that, you will suffer a lot. Instead, you should use repository pattern, which will give you a little ease to write your dependencies, your unit tests and all of that. So far, so good. The benefit of the ecosystem in PHP, we cannot overemphasize it. But how good the ecosystem is in your hands. The ecosystem is nice and good, lies in the hands of the developer. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the presentation. I really enjoyed the session. So, any question for our speaker? Any question? Time for question and answer. No question? Wow. I have a question, by the way. So, sir, I want you to probably share or shed more light on opportunities that abound in the field of programming, especially in the Nigerian environment. Did you get that, sir?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much for the question. So the field of programming in Nigeria, I think is still a great field. It's still a great field, a great field. The harvest is ripe, but the laborers on the field is still very few. So there are a lot of opportunities in the field of programming, especially as it has to do with the PHP ecosystem. There are a lot of opportunities in Nigeria. All right, I will start with the first part of it. As a PHP developer, if you are a PHP developer and you say you do not have job to do, you do not have work to do, then it simply means that you are not doing your work well. Let me share this little story. When I wanted to move into programming fully, far back, I think 2017 or thereabout or so, I wanted to do Java. In fact, I'm a Java enthusiast. I love Java like tomorrow. That was my first programming language. But by the time I got to know that there are opportunities in Java, but not as much as there are all over the place with PHP, I have to make a U-turn. So the first opportunity that exists in the field of programming in Nigeria is the opportunity of techpreneur. You can be a techpreneur, an entrepreneur in the field. You can be an entrepreneur. All you need to do is to do one good project. And once you do a good project, that good project will go on and on speaking for you. I can tell you here that most of the projects I have done throughout my career came as a result of just one project I did. And that person recommended me to the next person, and the other person recommended me to the next person. And that was how the recommendation continued. And today we are where we are. So the opportunity there, the techpreneur opportunity, is very vast. Very vast. That is number one opportunity. Another opportunity that exists in the field and in the ecosystem of PHP is your SaaS platform, software as a service, or PaaS, platform as a service. You can come up with it. It's an opportunity. We have few of those platforms all over. And why are we saying that there are opportunities in PHP? The opportunities because you can just build such platforms and you, with little or nothing, just few cash, few amount of naira, you can be able to get infrastructure that you can power those platforms. Unlike your Java, you will need a very high caliber of infrastructure to power it, which will begin to reason the money you will incur at the end of the month in AWS or all of it, DigitalOcean and all the rest of them. You begin to look at the money, you begin to ask yourself, where am I going to get this money to move into this? But do those platforms with PHP first. You find that with your less 20, 30K, you can just have those things running. So it's an opportunity that we can leverage on. Software as a service, platform as a service. They are great opportunities. You can look at just one manual service that is running and convert them. There are opportunities. Then the job environment also. There are job opportunities out there for developers. I think there's one developer groups I belong to, Full Snacks Developers Forum. These people, they post PHP jobs much more than other jobs. And if you see the money they are supposed to pay, you see yourself earning like 400, 500K in a month. And then you begin to look at the economy. What is the minimum wage of the country? And how much are you earning per month? You find out that that's a good pay to start with. And all of these are opportunities still in PHP. And you just need little or nothing to get started. And the best of the opportunity is that the environment, the ecosystem, and PHP has a very large community that you can leverage on. I want to tell you there's nothing you want to develop with PHP that you cannot develop. There's a large community for it. And each of the framework you want to use are well documented. In fact, I remove cap for PHP frameworks. I do. They are well documented, unlike other languages. So you can leverage on Techpreneur, you can leverage on the SaaS platform, develop SaaS platform, PaaS platforms. You can leverage on seeking for a job. They are all there out for you to explore. And we have less people doing that. And we need more hands for it. That's why in my organization, our motto is making the art of software programming a household practice. And it's a vision that I will keep pursuing until I get it, so long as there is life. Because we want to make it in a way that every family will want to have a Dave. if not at least a PHP dev, because there is a lot of opportunity to explore out there. Thank you so much.
I have a question. Hello.
Go on, I'm with you.
Yeah, my name is Abubakar from Kano State, and actually, I'm good in CMS. All these WordPress, Joomla, for almost I have an experience for almost about 7 years. I had a friend who is very good in PHP, so
Yeah.
I decided to go for Laravel framework. So the first thing was discouraging me. I should go for pure PHP. This framework have downside, blah blah blah. He was discouraging me not to go for framework. But I'm very good in CMS, so I don't know if you can give me more highlights, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Abubakar. I got your point. Now let me say this. Frameworks are just tools. They are there for you to leverage. They are there to help you. They are like your companion. They are just like a bootstrap. Like, how do I put it? A skeleton is a skeleton. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. It's a skeleton. So you are to build the flesh on the skeleton. So they are there to aid you. They are like your help. They are like your companion. So before you go into a framework, it is required, very much required, that you know the core modern language that is powering that framework, if you must excel in that framework. But I want to put it to you that there is no global organization. There might be, but the percentage might not be up to 30 or 40% that is purely running on pure PHP without a framework. There might be, but the percentage is low. The global communities, the global platforms you meet that runs on PHP, most of them, 70 to 80%, if I'm not mistaken, are running on one framework or the other. And if you are going for job interview, for instance, you will find out that they will tell you proficiency of this framework. PHP is there, normal. So before you go for Laravel, it's required that you do PHP procedural. Know how to write your PHP code, how to declare your variable, how to do your programming flow. Very important. You know, in programming, we have 3 flows in every programming language. There are 3 flows involved. Basically, 3 flows. Your decisive flow, your iterative flow, and your sequential flow. You need to know that all of that. And what does this entail? If I write a code straight, maybe to calculate 1 + 1 × 2, that's the sequential flow. But once I begin to bring if statement, if else statement, my ternary operator, my nested ternary operator, and now begin to talk about decisions. Then from there, you begin to move into iteration, where you have your for statement for each, while loop, do while, and all of that. You need to know all of these things for the procedural. You need to know things that have to do with your section. How do you manage section? What is section? How you store information temporarily on your browser. And then how you manage all of these things. You need to know all of this. You need to know how you do your validation. What are some PHP built-in functions? How do we strip tags manually in PHP? Your preg match, how you want to match that. If this is an email address, you match your preg match, your preg replace, your string replace, your substring. Some of these things are PHP functions. You need to know all of these things, how they work. So with the idea of these things, then you need to progress to OOP in PHP, because you know PHP is naturally not an OOP language, unlike Java. So you need to also know some OOP in PHP. You can do some, go to YouTube, get some playlists on OOP. This have to do with how you can create a class, an object of your class and all of that. Instantiate your class, the issue of singleton, how you manage your database class, your database connections, and all that. You know how to handle all of this. So you manage some certain business logic normally with your PHP. Then you can now talk of framework. So framework now is you are now putting the idea you have gotten from your PHP into the framework. So your framework is now helping you to set up some systems that you would have set up manually if you are to do that. For instance, if you want to do an e-commerce site, for instance, with PHP, if it is manual PHP, lo and behold, we will have to install our PHP mailer. We will have to install maybe a package for notification. We will have to install some other your cat package and all of that. You have to do all of that or write them from scratch. But in Laravel, you don't need all of that. Those things are already there in place. All you need to do is just to write your business logic and not doing all of this installation and configuration. So your framework are just there for you to go ahead and write your PHP code and then have less headache in configuration. But doing these things manually will take a lot of time. And most global organizations do not do this thing manually. They leverage on these frameworks because these things are already there and well tested and well developed. So I think you should go to pure PHP first. When you are done, you visit briefly OOP in PHP, which will give you a concept of how classes, objects, and methods work. Then you can now move into your Laravel. And then when you want to do project, please don't do project with pure PHP. That is my professional advice. Do your project with your framework. Laravel, Symfony, CodeIgniter, anyone you can. Do your project with it. It is good for that because this framework has been tested over time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So our time is fast spent. Moving forward, I would like to bring on and introduce our second speaker and our internal speaker, Mr. Arokoyo Oladimeji David. Is a backend developer at Bincom Development Center and is the co-founder of Save Me Loan and the CEO of Cult the Web Solutions. He graduated with a degree in statistics from the University of Uni-Ilorin. So, Mr. Oladimeji, you can have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you very much. All right, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bright, he has done justice to virtually everything that we need to cover today. But notwithstanding, let me still just say a little more. But Mr. Bright already did justice to that. So I'll be sharing my screen and just let us have just take a look at what would I say take a look at what we've already done because they have already covered it all. So that's fine. So all right, we've spoken about the PHP ecosystem, that what it's all about, and it says it's PHP ecosystem encompasses a wide range of tools, libraries, frameworks, and practices that support and enhance PHP development. So basically, the ecosystem has a lot of components, right? When we're talking about the ecosystem, we have the frameworks, we have tools, we have libraries, and is leveraging this ecosystem now is how best you make use of all this together. You bring this all together to make best use of what we have available. There are a lot of existing libraries, packages that are existing out there. And we want to, like, from the question that Abubakar asked, and Mr. Bright said that you have all these things existing. You don't want to start writing codes all over from scratch and doing a lot of things. They are all there in the ecosystem. That's why we're using a framework. Why do I need a framework? I can just start a Laravel framework with an authentication scaffold already, just running a single code. instead of the time I would take to start writing codes and all this, doing everything. Everything is already ready, which just running a command using Composer. I can install anything, maybe Jetstream library or whatever I want, and have that scaffold or prepared for me compared to when you want to use. So that's basically the advantage of this ecosystem. A lot of people have done these things. What you want to do, people have done it. What you haven't done, people have done it. The libraries are there, the packages are there. So why don't I just leverage on the ecosystem and start making, building applications, strong app, aside the frameworks again, the security, it comes with a lot of advantages. So leveraging the ecosystem is best. And like he iterated that it's necessary for you to already know the foundation of PHP. Very, very necessary because you can't be going advanced without knowing the basic. Definitely you won't understand what's going on there. You won't understand, you won't have a full understanding of what's actually happening in the framework. That's why you need to have a basic understanding of PHP itself, know how to use functions, know how to use OOP PHP, understand loops, understand if conditions, conditional state, understand operations, understand all those things before now getting into using the framework. So basically, this is what the ecosystem is all about, the PHP ecosystem. It's all about this component and you making good use of them. The community is also a very large community that you can't get stuck. That's just you can't even get stuck because there's always an answer for you out there. The community is out there for you. There's always an answer. It's just for you to leverage that. So moving forward, I don't know if am I sharing my screen already?
Yes, your screen is shared, sir.
Okay, is it is it clear? Can you see can you see?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
very
can see
Okay,
it
clear.
on my phone.
all right, fine, thank you. Thank you for that confirmation. So what are the benefits of the PHP ecosystem? Like I just said, rapid development. Frameworks like Laravel and Symfony speed up the development processes. Why? Because of you can just simply call various libraries and packages, just install them using Composer, and you're good to go. All you just need to do is to instantiate the class and then call the method you want to use wherever you want to use them, and you're ready to go on. Then also with I spoke about community support also earlier. That community support, they can just there are open source this thing out there. You go to the community, you see like Yi, for example, Yi, Laravel, all of them. Like he said that the documented. I usually advise
Hello, please. Is the meeting over? My network went off, so I came back and I see there's not anybody making presentation. I don't know if it is done.
The meeting is not over. I think Mr. Ladimeji is experiencing network issues, so I'm trying to reach out to him now. It just went off. I think the network cut him off. So sorry about that, please.
Hello, sorry. So I wasn't looking at my device, so it was actually down. So I just got disconnected. I'm sorry. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I got disconnected. Okay, our time is very much spent. So basically, probably let me just round up, right? Mr. Bright already said a lot. He already covered everything. Why we need the what is it called? Why we need why we need to leverage this ecosystem, and he spoke at length about the various frameworks and why we need them. And he also spoke about Composer, right? And from what he said about Composer, now Composer, instead of us having to run it's a dependency manager, right? Instead of us now having to run probably require statement on every file, we just need to run the Composer auto load from our entry script, from our entry point, from the entry script. Any request you're making, the required class is being called by the Composer autoloader, and find that makes it very easy to work with any dependency. And it's also easy for us because it installs, we can just, Mr. Bright also mentioned it, you can simply go to Composer and run Composer updates. If there's any updates for any of our packages or any of the dependencies, we can simply run updates here. And Composer also helps us in like ensuring that the version, there's no conflicts in version. It's just so powerful using Composer. I don't think there's much more that I need to say, because the speaker already did justice. He had said everything. Then he also spoke about the unit testing, why it's necessary, and working also with our CI/CD. So each time you're pushing a code, you don't have to push wrong code that will cause error, and probably customers and we start complaining that what's happening here. So before that error is being pushed, it's being detected. That's why we need this testing, and it's very important. So let's just leverage on this. It's available for us as PHP developers. It's necessary for you to know how to use these frameworks, for you to know how to use these tools, for you to know how to use everything, the community itself, and for you to always go to their documentation, know what you want to do. And also, he also mentioned, our external speaker also mentioned, the framework is as good as you are, as what you do on it. So I might be using a framework, underutilizing it, doesn't mean this how powerful the framework is or how powerful the framework isn't. So it all depends also on you. So you also should have an extensive understanding of these frameworks. You're in PHP, yes, I'm in PHP. You have to have extensive understanding of PHP itself, its frameworks, these tools that are needed, and then using this ecosystem will go a long way to help you. Like he also mentioned, help you in being an entrepreneur. You don't need to look for a job. You don't need to be in search of a job. You can create amazing projects. He said one project set him up. It was moving from other projects to other projects just via one project. That's how how powerful PHP is. So many people will say, some people will say PHP is this is that. I really don't believe that, because I say PHP again, you integrate it with every with React, with Vue.js. It does, that is a power. It's just powerful for back end. To me, that's what PHP is. Very, very powerful using it from the back end. So if you put in use everything that has been said all through this, we've been here for over an hour, 45 minutes. Everything that has been said, and utilize it, you will see that you make a very good use of this PHP ecosystem. And virtually you won't search for job. There are lots of jobs out there for PHP developers. Lots of jobs. Most of the websites we see out there, they are built with PHP itself. If you're even talking about the CMS, content management system, talking about WordPress, if you're even looking at e-commerce, Magnet, or what is it called, lots of them, it's still the PHP. PHP is the guy behind all these things. So when someone says PHP isn't probably outdated or something, it's a huge lie, because it keeps advancing year in, year out. It keeps advancing. So you should leverage it. It shouldn't just end here. It shouldn't end with what you've heard today. It shouldn't end with what you heard today. This should just be something that inspires you, that okay, this is a field where I want to be. It should be an inspiration to you, that you go, oh, okay, let me start. The best way to learn is by you going on your own, especially in programming, you going and doing practicals on your own, practicalizing, taking up projects on your own. Doesn't matter how long it will take you to complete. Yeah, you'll find bugs. So at some point it might be discouraging. At some point you might you might just get weak, like you're not getting it. But don't give up. Like I said earlier, we have the community there. Go online, do your research, you get answers. If you can't get answers, look for someone. There are a lot of people, colleagues, friends that can actually help you out with these programs. Then you just sit, code, write your code, and keep doing it over and over again. Consistency is the key. Anything you're doing consistently, you're doing it over and over again, you definitely um be a master at it. That's just it. You'll be a master at it. So it's 4:47. So I think the meeting should end by 4:45. Then we take questions, and I believe every question has even been answered. Mr. Abubakar, right? I think you're the one who asked the question, and I believe you've gotten every answer that you need, right? Abubakar.
Yeah, I got the answer I need. Yes.
Yeah, and
But
any
in addition to that, sir, for
yeah,
now, like me, I have a basic understanding of PHP, declaring Laravel, I mean, variable and so on and so forth. But I need to go deep. HTML is a basic, I know PHP deep, but I know less a bit about CSS. So I think I'll focus more on the function,
PHP.
that if statement and so on, right?
Yes, you just need to take a full course on PHP. You can, there are online resources, like I said earlier. You can take courses online, and also in Bincom, we have our academy, we have our PHP beginners, PHP intermediate. The PHP beginners is where you basically learn the basic PHP, everything, and it doesn't end there. Also, go to there. We have W3 schools. If you go through the complete PHP course in W3 schools, then you're good.
Yes,
Everything is there. Everything is basically covered in that PHP PHP course in W3
yes,
schools. On your
yes, I know
own,
the
just
website.
take time. Huh? You said?
Yes, I know the website W3 School is my. I've been visiting the website so often.
Yeah. So every segment of PHP that you need to know is here. Just go there. You can try. There's room for you to try your codes. There's room for you to. So just walk over there, spend at least minimum 8 hours of your day. Okay, depending on your job though. So okay, but just find time to give to it. Once you're good in your conditions, if conditions, once you're good with your if conditions, once you're good with your loops, once you're good with functions, then and once you're good with OOP PHP, then you're perfect. The next thing you need is framework. It's very important. You move to framework because it makes life easy for you. It just makes life so easy for you. You don't need to start stressing and start writing lots of things. Anything you want to use has been someone has done it. It's just for you to import it and make use of it.
Thank, thank you for
All
the
right,
encouragement. Thank you.
all right, all right. Thank you very much. Anyone else that have we still have I think 10 minutes for anyone who has something to say. Okay, Chi. Okay. Um. Okay, Mr. Bright, in addition, is there any other thing you would like to tell us? So,
All right. So for now, nothing. Thank you so much. It's a nice one being in this meetup. Thank you
thank
so
you very
much.
much, sir.
Thank
I
you
really
so much.
appreciate it. Your section was so enlightening. It was an eye opener. It's me. I personally, I had learned a couple of things, and I know everyone that attended also did. We really appreciate you for your time, for taking this time out to be with us today. We're grateful. We say thank you very much. So, Ogechi, if there is nothing from your end, I think we can call it a day. It was a wonderful section, so we can just call it a day. Thank you very much, everyone. All right. Ogechi, what's up? How you doing now?
I'm very fine, sir. Sir, I want to appreciate you and Mr. Bright for this wonderful session. I really enjoyed the session. I learned a lot of things from the session.
Yeah,
So I believe that we'll be having this kind of thing subsequent time.
yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, so call it a day. Thank you very much, everyone. I don't know who is ending the YouTube. Well, the host is no longer here. Let me see. I don't even know. Is it? I believe it's saved, Sha. Even though I end it, right?